Okay, so two new questions have come in. So I think the first one's for you, Ella. So the question is, CRGs often include their bespoke guidance or text in the protocol template, according to their topic area. Will this text be available for new protocols created for existing CRGs?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have, in terms of the protocol template that has been embedded within RevMan, this is a template that will be used across all Cochrane groups. So the idea is to keep that sort of generic across all Cochrane groups, but there are ways of supporting different CRGs that may have bespoke guidance and text. So what we really want to do is to meet with them, understand exactly what the text is, or maybe the references are that they recommend for authors that work within their group, to understand how best to ensure that that guidance is available for the authors while they're writing their protocols.
All right. And the other question is, Conchita Martin asks, do you recommend to change the format of already published reviews to this new format, or to wait until the next update?
So within RevMan, we are encouraging any authors working on a review now that plan to submit in 2024 to switch to the focused review format. From the 31st of March next year, all new submissions to the Central Editorial Service will need to use this focused article format. So that's why we've got that kind of recommendation, that if you're submitting next year, to switch now. And that's because there's going to be a lot of benefits in terms of the kind of faster editorial processing and faster production times once you have submitted. So you may need to do a little bit of work as part of that change now, but you'll reap the benefits later down the process. In terms of, so once a review has been submitted to the Central Editorial Service, we will not be requesting authors change the format during peer review or during revisions. But once a review, so what basically the idea is that from the 31st of March, once all of those submissions within the Central Editorial Service that use the longer old format have been processed through peer review and to publication, that all of the reviews in RevMan will be switching to this focused article format. So yeah, they will all be switching at some point, most likely by the 31st of March next year, unless they've already submitted in that longer review format, at which point they'll be processed through peer review and production in the old format before being switched. I hope that made sense.
Yep. All right, so there's another question that's come in. Therese Delsbo asks, will standard references be available in the template to Confidence, Prisma, Grade, the handbook, and so on?
Yes. Yeah. We are the intervention template currently has some standard references, but we're also gathering other ones that might be important for authors. And when it comes to developing the templates for reviews, the other review types such as DTA, prognosis, will also be working with the methods groups to make sure that those templates also have standard references for their review type.
All right. I think it's worth going back through some of the older questions that may have been answered in chat already. So there was a question from Dario, which was which parts of the review will be copy edited?
Yeah, so when it comes to copy editing, only the main article will be typeset and copy edited by Cochrane in the production stages. The supplementary materials will not. But all supplementary materials will be editorially checked, and dependent on the content may go for full peer review. So for example, search strategies will still be going for full peer review. But yeah.
Excellent. I think another one that's worth, so we did show in the demo that the overview of included studies table currently has to be created manually, but do you want to comment on potential automation for that as well?
Yeah, so this is an area that we really want to investigate more. There's always going to be an element of authors needing to think about what needs to go in that overview of included studies and syntheses tables, because the idea is that table would pull in characteristics of the review that are most important to help a reader interpret the review. So that's going to be specific on the review question. So there's always going to be an element of an author needing to think about and design that table. But there might be some elements that are going to be pretty standard. And, Gert, we haven't spoken about this yet, but particularly when thinking about, which studies contribute results to which analyses, like data holds that, RevMan holds that data. So instead of someone having to manually pull that, are there ways to kind of automate that information in the table? I think would be really, really important to investigate sort of sooner than later, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's really valuable to get some experience and to see like lots of real reviews coming through and see what they're doing in these tables to make sure that we're automating the most valuable and the most common scenarios. I think there's one final question, which is quite a practical one from Liz Dooley, which is how do you have to name your appendices in order for them to be pulled into supplementary materials? That's already been answered correctly in chat. So if you have search in the title, it will automatically be pulled into this overall search strategies supplementary material. So I believe we've covered all the questions and nothing new has come in.
Okay. Great. So thank you, Gert. So just a quick a reminder, I guess. If you're working on oh wait, we've just had a last minute one come in. Which references of included studies is reported? Gert, one for you?
Yeah, sure. So if you mention a study, so any study, also if you mention your excluded studies or your ongoing studies and so on, the very first time that you mention that study, it will cite all of the references for that study. So if you mention a study, all of its references will be included in the main reference list. We have also added the ability to specifically cite a single reference from within a study. So that's also an option. But yes, if you have 30 references, then it will cite all 30 when you mention the study.
Yeah, and just to add at the moment that they are we're developing the functionality. So it would say, for example, reference 5 to 35 and not list them all. But that's as we mentioned, this is the kind of first version that we have launched with, and we are being agile and iterative if we go forward to make sure that we are addressing areas that could be improved. Narelle has added, why not just the primary study? Should I take that one?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so we did a lot of consultation as part of the development of these parts of these developments, and it was thought that all of the sites, all of the references to the included studies were important and should be included in the reference list, which is why we've gone with that. Okay, so Irene has asked, why do we need to write a characteristics of studies table in the supplementary materials if we are expecting to do an overview of studies tables? It seems like doubling of effort. So I think, so although data can come from several references, so I'm not sure if they're linked, but I'll just take that first one. The changes to studies, the data and the review have meant that with study-centric data and the import functionality that we have for included study data, that if you use that process, your full characteristics of included studies tables in the supplementary materials will be automatically created. The overview of studies and analyses and syntheses table provides an opportunity for authors to really think about what's the most important information about the included studies that's relevant to their review question, so that they can create a table that allows for much easier comparison across the included studies tables. This is something that came out really, really clear in the feedback from the survey, that you can't use the full characteristics of studies tables to really compare across studies. There's just too much information in there. And something else that's missing from Cochrane reviews is the ability to see which studies, well, have an overview and clear and easily see which studies contribute results to which of the review outcomes. So by combining these two elements, an easier way to compare across included studies and see what included studies contribute results to what review outcomes, we've created something that was really kind of sought after, or really, flagged as something that was important to have in terms of interpreting the evidence and interpreting Cochrane reviews from that survey. We do appreciate that there isn't an element of like the duplication of effort, but because the full characteristics of studies tables now have the ability to be made automatically, we're hoping that this shouldn't create too much additional effort or burden for authors. And as we've mentioned, we are looking at how to automate aspects of that overview table, because we do believe it's important to have in there because of those reasons that I've highlighted.